The League of Women Voters White Bear Lake area welcomes you to this virtual forum for the candidates in the November election for White Bear School Board District 624. This forum is not open to the public and is not being live streamed. It is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. Links to that can be found on our website, which is www.lwv/wbla.org. In addition, local cable channels will replay this forum on a schedule determined by their station. My name is Liz Nordling, and I will be moderating this forum tonight. I do not live in White Bear Lake or in the White Bear Lake School District. As a trusted volunteer organization, the League of Women Voters does not support or oppose political parties or candidates. We sponsor forums like this to provide voters an opportunity to hear candidates' views about issues of interest in the upcoming election. The order for speaking tonight will begin in alphabetical order and will be rotated thereafter. Candidates' remarks are being timed to assure equality of time. Questions have been submitted by the public on our LWV email. All candidates for this race were invited to participate, but we have the following candidates participating in tonight's forum. They are Lisa Beecroft, Deb Beloyed, Rebekah Bradfield, Kathleen Daniels, Jessica Ellison, John Ficcadenti, Bill Mahre, Luke Michaud, and Chris Streiff Oji. We're going to go right to questions. And the question goes first to Lisa Beecroft. Do you support the district's mitigation plan that includes requiring face coverings for all individuals over age 2, regardless of vaccination status, in all buildings at all times, including at district board meetings? Why or why not?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and to jump right in, yes, I do support the mask mandate in our school district at this time. We know that the masks work. They help prevent the spread of disease. And right now, we want to keep the kids in school as long as possible, and hopefully through this pandemic so that their education won't be interrupted like it was in the previous years. The mask mandates, they're not forever. It's something that we are going to use to manage the pandemic in our classrooms during this peak season. But as more people are vaccinated, as we continue to see things improve over time, eventually we will get back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now goes to Deb Beloyed.
So first of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this forum. Yes, I do believe that our mitigation strategy is the right way to go. It's a public health issue, and we need to listen to the experts in this area. We listen to the CDC, the Minnesota Department of Health, the American Academy of Pediatrics have all stated that they believe that masks at this time, when transmission rates are over 5%, is what's necessary. Layering those with other mitigation strategies has shown to work. And as a district, I believe we've taken a good approach, which when we're in a high rate, we have to mask. When those rates go down, we have the option of reversing the mask mandate. So I think we've taken the right direction on that.
Thank you. The question now goes to Rebekah Bradfield.
Thank you for having me this evening. I do not believe the mandate is the right choice for our district. I believe it needs to be determined between parents and the medical team for each individual student and staff member. There have been other issues with masks other than physical health, and it has also become a barrier to learning. It's become a barrier to social environments, and it has been not clear, given various articles and various studies, that the benefits are actually there, given that most children are not wearing them properly, either because the mask isn't the right size or because of just their age and maturity, they don't wear them properly. So I do not believe that masks are the best mitigation method. I believe we need to pursue other things, including upgraded filtration system and other air quality improvements in our buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to Kathleen Daniels. Unmute yourself, Kathleen.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. I agree with the mask mandate. I also believe in following the experts, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Minnesota Department of Health. Keeping kids safely in the classroom is our #1 goal this year. They've missed enough time, and I believe this is the way we can keep them in the classroom and start to recover some of the learning loss that they had over the pandemic. And that isn't just White Bear Lake that's had that learning loss, that's across the country. I think the more time they can spend in the building with their peers and their teachers, the better they will recover not just their academic skills, but their socialization and other things that have happened to them, the increase in anxiety and depression and things like that. So we also have to keep our teachers safe and people in the building and their families. I know for a fact that many students have health plans and have compromised immune systems. So I want to make sure we look out for them also. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now goes to Jessica Ellison.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I fully support the district's mitigation plan. Again, as has been stated, I'm not a scientist and I need to take the best possible research and expert opinion, which comes from the CDC, the Minnesota Department of Health, the American Academy of Pediatrics, who all support masking in schools. And we've seen across the metro and the state schools that are already having to, that didn't have mask mandates, that are having to add them, or they're having to go to distance learning. And I want to keep our kids in school as long as possible. And this is a public health issue. We have to do everything we can to keep our kids, staff, and families safe. We don't know who students are trying to protect in their homes and their families and their communities. And if we can just keep one kid safe and protect one kid or one teacher from getting COVID, then I believe the mask mandate is the safest and most responsible thing for us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now goes to John Ficcadenti.
You know, the logic of wearing a mask baffles me. How can in 1 week you take your family to a Minnesota Viking football game with 65,000 people, none of them wearing a mask? Where are these experts that you talk about telling everybody, all the fans at a Minnesota Viking football game, to put a mask on? If you're ever going to catch the virus, it would be with 65,000 people in an indoor facility. The same people, these families, then go to Home Depot. They go to Menards. They go out to dinner. Nobody's wearing a mask, okay? So where are these outbreaks? Where are these experts who say in schools it works, but 95% else they don't? The logic is baffling. You know why? Because there's no conclusive evidence that masks work. I am for freedom of choice. Let the families decide what works best for them. That is not the job of a school board. As Jessica Ellison said, she's not a scientist. Keep it that way. Freedom of choice for all families.
Thank you. The question now goes to Bill Mahre.
It's Bill Mahre, by the way.
Mahre, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm also for freedom of choice. I believe there's been a lot of contradictory evidence, as well as dialogue among scientists and doctors on this subject. Even some of the leading ones in the country have said that early on that masks didn't work. So I think everybody is a little bit confused as to whether or not it really is mitigating the disease. Having said that, if people feel more comfortable with it, they feel like they're doing a better job in terms of safety for their children and the people around them, make that choice. The one thing that I emphasize, though, is keeping kids in school. I think that's the major element that is required of the school board and the school district.
Thank you. The question now goes to Luke Michaud. Luke, are you with us? I think we've lost Luke. So the question now goes to Chris Streiff OG.
And it's Streiff, Chris Streiff.
Sorry.
Thanks for having me. I do believe in the mitigation strategy of wearing masks in schools. I believe in following the recommendations of people that study medicine and that know what's best for our kids. And that includes all of the organizations previously mentioned, the CDC, the Minnesota Department of Health, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. I need to rely on them. That's what they study. Having been in a school where kids were wearing masks, I did not see kids struggle with that. I did not see kids have a hard time talking, sharing, playing together. And I believe it is the least we can do to keep our children safe and our families safe. And we do want to keep kids in school. And because of that, I fully support masking in order to keep our kids in school and to keep our kids together and to keep their families safe.
Thank you. I see that Luke Michaud is back on. So Luke, the question goes to you.
I want to thank the league as well this evening for having this or hosting this. I think, sure, there are plenty of studies out there that say masks work. I think I could show an equal number of very credible studies that are going to say they're not going to work. I'm not for mandating masks in any way. And I think that's a choice between the parents and the students and the staff too. I'm not opposed to masks. If you want to wear them, go ahead. I also don't believe, again, I do believe I can show you equal number of credible studies that say that they're ineffective. Let's wash our hands. Let's keep a little bit of distance and be practical about what we're doing.
Thank you. We're going to do a very short follow-up question, 15 seconds. It goes to John Ficcadenti first. If the school district decides to change their policy, what sources should the district rely on in determining changes to this current policy on mask wearing?
Well, basically the same policies that everybody else is using, as I explained earlier. Home Depot, no mask. Sam's Club, no mask. Nobody is wearing a mask except Liberty Classical Academy, no mask. St. Agnes, no mask. Okay. Why is White Bear bucking all that?
What sources should the district rely on? Not Home Depot or Vikings games. What sources? 15 seconds.
Parents and their freedom to choose.
Okay, question now goes to Luke Michaud. What sources should the district rely on?
Well, you're emphasizing sources. I can assure you that there's going to be equal number of reports on either side talking about wearing of masks. If you were to see an actual outbreak in the school, I think that we as a board would have to consult sources to decide whether or not to bring the mask mandate back. But I don't see that happening.
And what sources would that be?
I look for physicians in the local area. You'd also, sure, you're going to look to the CDC and you're going to look to the Minnesota Health Department and other areas, but it's going to be hard pressed to bring back a mandate when you look at other areas of the general economy and other institutions of education, and there's not these massive outbreaks that everybody's been afraid of.
Okay, thank you. Question now goes to Lisa Beecroft.
I believe we should follow our guidance from the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Health. Again, we aren't going to be here forever. We are going to see our numbers drop eventually as more people are vaccinated. But in the meantime, they are the health experts.
Thank you. The question goes to Rebekah Bradfield.
I believe we need to be using sources including other peer-reviewed articles and studies like you would find in the National Institute of Health on their website, and just overall looking to local experts. This may be a national pandemic, but each area has unique obstacles and unique spread rates and unique climate. So I believe we need to be consulting local experts like your local doctors, Synergy family physicians, or maybe the local health partners clinic, and ask them specifically what they're seeing in our area.
Thank you. Question goes to Deb Beloyed.
Yeah, so we actually do rely on local experts within the Ramsey County Health Department. We also rely on Our COVID team that works with the health department. We need to look at the transmission rates that are within the county. The counties put out, both Washington and Ramsey. And we need to go by the guidance of the CDC and the MDH. If they change their guidance, then we can change the plan.
Thank you. Question goes to Kathleen Daniels.
Yeah, I agree that we need to look at our county data, not only for Ramsey, but Anoka and Washington counties, because we're a district in 3 counties. We have school data. The nurses are keeping track of kids that are sent home with symptoms and keeping track of those kids that have tested positive. So we know, we will know from our own data too, how it's spreading. And I think we also have to look at local hospital data and how many students, family members, staff members are being treated.
Thank you. Question goes to Christina Streiff, OG.
Thank you. I would say the CDC, the Minnesota Department of Health, and all the way drilling down to county and district and schools as well, the transmission rates, what's happening, and follow the guidelines and the recommendations by the experts.
Thank you. Question goes to Bill Mahre.
Yeah, I think part of the problem that we've had here is an inconsistency amongst scientists in agreement. I would try to identify a singular source that we can be comfortable with and confident in, and I would choose the Minnesota Department of Health, since they would oversee the multiple counties and the entire state, and use them as the guiding factor.
Thank you. Question goes to Jessica Ellison.
I think we need to look at a couple of different sources. We need to look at the big picture, which comes from the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics, but then we also need to look at local sources as we get closer. So the Minnesota Department of Health, our county sources, and also the health professionals in our different buildings. These are the folks who understand what it means for children to be in buildings for 6 hours a day in contact with hundreds of other people. They are the experts who study this rapidly changing pandemic, and we need to listen.
Thank you. The next question will go to Jessica Ellison first, and I want to read from the district website, the equity commitment. To nurture the whole student, we disrupt systematic inequities by recognizing, honoring, and embracing all cultures with humility and respect. So the question is, what will you do to advance the school district's equity commitment?
Thank you. The first thing we need to do is listen to our students. The students and the teachers and staff who are in the buildings are the ones who are privy to what is happening in the buildings and the experiences that they have. They also are the ones that have these lived experiences of what it means to need different types of resources depending on their individual lived experiences. So I'm going to listen to what the students and staff are telling us. I'm going to take a look at all of our resources as a whole, building by building, and see where are the gaps, where are the barriers that are getting in the way of our students being successful. Because we know that we're nurturing the whole child, that a student has many different identities and many different experiences that we need to be able to, as a school district, address what are the specific things that that student needs to be successful, whether it is students in a special education program, students who are homeless, students who are students of color or LGBTQ. We need to hear them, we need to put resources into it, and we need to eliminate barriers.
Thank you. The question now goes to Christina Streiff, OG.
Thank you. I would also listen to students and families. I would listen to staff. Something that I did a lot of was using data to drive all decisions around supports for every single student. Every student in our district needs to feel not only welcome, but that they are a part of our community. And so if we don't listen to them, we can't ensure that. I've heard a lot of stories from a lot of families. I've been in the most diverse school in White Bear Lake for nearly 7 years. And I've heard a lot of stories. I see what's happening with data around discipline, around academic data, and I see that there are needs and that we need to provide those supports so all of our kids can be successful academically and social emotionally in our schools.
Thank you. The question goes to Deb Beloyed.
Could you repeat the question for me one more time?
What will you do to advance the school district's equity commitment?
Well, I would say as well that first off, we have to listen to our students. We have to listen to our parents. We have to listen to our educators. There's a lot of different perspectives out there, and we need to honor those perspectives. Part of our strategic plan has a 4-way equity decision-making protocol that we need to follow when we're making all of our decisions. We want to make sure that each and every one of our students is set up for success, and that means giving them the support that they need. Some of those areas are going to be academic, some of those are going to be social emotional. There's a lot of different ways to do that. We need to teach in ways that our students can see themselves in the lessons. We know that when we make that connection with our students, that the learning increases, the retention increases. And through our policies, we need to advance the policies that we have through our strategic plan.
Thank you. The question goes to Bill Mahre.
Yeah, I think it's important that every student and staff member in the district be appreciated for their individuality and respected and valued. So having said that, I also want to emphasize to everybody that you're dealing with 8,700 students, 800 staff members, $125 million business. And in reality, you're not going to be able to reach everybody's needs individually. There are things that you're going to have to put in place and make the best choices that you can for the whole, and not just each individual person, because it's not fiscally responsible to do that. Plus, any of the programs that we have in place, we need to make sure that we're measuring them. We need to have defined success and not just have a feel-good attribute that says that we're going to try to, words matter, but if we just throw out a bunch of words and make ourselves feel good without really understanding what the success level is, then the programs are destined for failure.
Thank you. The question goes to Rebekah Bradfield.
Thank you. I would, for as far as equity goes, I think it's very important that we use it in a lens that empowers students of all backgrounds and experiences. We need to make sure that all students know what they are capable of and then make them accountable to that. Let them know that they can overcome obstacles, whether those may be disabilities in learning or physical, whether those might be circumstances in their home, but we need to make sure that we are giving them not just the opportunities and the support, but give them that mental stimulation they need to realize that they can do better and they can do more. We also need to definitely make sure respect is a large portion of that. Respect of both the students, the staff, and the parents, making sure we are listening and to how they feel and what they feel, and acknowledging that well.
Thank you. The question goes to Luke Michaud.
Well, I guess I would have to agree almost completely with Bill. We as a school board want to cast as wide a net as we can and bring into it as many of the children as we can and address as many of the needs as we can and establish for ourselves measurable goals and metrics. Again, many of the things that I do read at this point on the school board website are not even measurable. And so I think we need to do as good a job as the school can to make sure all of the students get an equal education.
Thank you. The question now goes to Kathleen Daniels.
Yes, number one, we have to be a welcoming school community for all families. Whether the students are BIPOC students, have economic differences or learning differences, all students need to feel safe and secure and so they can avail themselves to academics. I do believe that we can reach every student. I don't think that we have to just take an overview and try to reach the most students. I think we have staff that know and teachers that know their students and understand their students and get to know their students. And that's so important. We need to know their stories and believe their stories. We need to be responsive to the needs and voices of families in our community, whether they have children or whether they don't have children. I also support the Department of Equity and Engagement that has kind of been revamped or redone by our current superintendent with new roles and responsibilities. I think that'll go a long way in helping our students and families engage in what we have to offer. And I think that all students deserve the academic and social emotional support to meet their potential. Thank you.
Thank you. Question goes to Lisa Beecroft.
Hi. Equity recognizes that everybody has different circumstances, and we can't simply allocate exactly the same resources to every student in our district because they have different needs to help them succeed in education. For me, whether it's providing inclusive classrooms so that students don't feel that they're being pulled out and not getting to participate with the rest of the class, whether it's listening to the families and the students if they feel that they aren't getting the resources or support that they need, or even just helping families that maybe don't have the transportation or the access to internet or other things to help bridge those gaps to help them be successful students in our classrooms. Those are just different tactics that we can try and reach each different individual need of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to John Ficcadenti.
Excuse me, by asking that question, you are insinuating that White Bear community and White Bear schools are not currently inclusive. Okay, I don't see that. I think this creates a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. We as a community are not racist. We as a community have some racist individuals in it, but when we surround ourselves with good people, we can stomp that out. So I give the students, the staff, and the community much more credit than you people do, okay? Because we are an inclusive community. I love White Bear. It's a great community, and that's why I want to serve on the White Bear Lake School Board.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first, John. What is your plan to help increase and retain the number of BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, and people of color, teachers and staff within the school district?
How about we retain everybody? I mean, why do we have to label any one particular category? We've had parents, white parents across the board leaving the school district in droves because they're unhappy with the current situation. I'm not going to specifically work with one group or the other. I want to work with all groups. So what are we going to do for all the parents that have left this year because of how disgusted they are? How are we going to get them back? You know what I'm going to do when I'm on the school board? I'm going to call them, whether they're Black, white, whatever. I'm going to find out what drastic measures happened at this school that caused you to actually leave us. Some people are homeschooling, a mass exodus because of what's happening currently with this school board and across the nation. So we don't want to specifically tap into one group or the other. We need everybody in the community to make this a great school.
Thank you. The question goes to Kathleen Daniels.
Well, I do think that there's issues in the community where some of our families haven't felt welcome and haven't maybe been included in some of the things that they'd like to participate in for various reasons and various barriers. I think that the staff development and areas of culturally responsive curriculum, and again, knowing your students and believing their lived experiences will help retain families and also our staff of color. And I think by making an effort to hire more staff that look like some of our students, it will help everyone stay in the district longer. I also think that we need to educate the community better on really what happens in some of our schools and some of our communities and believe our community members. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to Christina Streiff.
I do think it's critically important that our students of color and all students see themselves in our leadership and in our teachers and our staff in our schools. I worked really hard to try and create a more diverse staff at Willow Lane Elementary School. And I also believe that it made a huge difference in our kids and how they related to some of the adults. It also brought great richness to our staff, richness in varying perspectives around issues, richness in all aspects of schooling. Actually, we heard things that we hadn't thought of. We heard perspectives we hadn't thought of, and it was invaluable. And I continued to strive to increase our diverse staff, and throughout my entire career, it's been a priority.
Thank you. The question goes to Luke Michaud. Luke, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm most certainly in favor of diverse hiring. However, I think any of the hiring decisions really should be colorblind. We should be focused on hiring exceptional teachers with exceptional backgrounds that'll do an exceptional job. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to Lisa Beecroft.
As a small business owner, but also somebody who's worked in multiple education and business settings, I absolutely believe that a diverse workforce brings so much more to the job that is being done. And in the case of our students, representation is going to matter. So if we attract and retain diverse candidates into our schools, it is going to make those interactions more meaningful. The way to do that is with, adequate or better compensation, professional development, support and resources to do the things that they want in class. And, to other people's points, those are certainly things that should be done for all staff and teachers, but we want to be deliberately outreaching to get diverse disciplines and backgrounds into our schools to teach our students.
Thank you. The question goes to Deborah Beloyed.
Thank you. I think one of the best ways that we can retain those teachers is to create a culture within our schools that's inclusive, create a culture within the schools that listens to the perspectives of others. I think we like to say that, well, everybody's welcome. You're welcome in our buildings, you're welcome. But I think we really need to develop a sense of belonging. People need to walk into our buildings and feel like they belong. They're not only welcome, but they belong in our buildings. And I think hiring teachers of color so that our students can see themselves in the administration and in the teachers that teach them is incredibly important. And it helps to create that sense of belonging. But overall, I think that's the major thing we need to look at is not only just welcome, but find ways to make sure that people feel like they belong.
Thank you. The question goes to Rebekah Bradfield.
Thank you. I would say that one thing I keep hearing is people interchanging your question, which was to have the Black, Indigenous, people of color to diversity. And in that respect, diversity is not just a skin color. You can get diverse backgrounds and experiences through so many other things than just simply the pigment of someone's skin. And I think ultimately we need to be recruiting staff and teachers that have different upbringings and different experiences, and ultimately are the best candidate, the most qualified to teach our children. If we can find that candidate and they have a different skin color, great. But we need to be putting our children first. And to do that, we need to have the best qualified teacher that can reach them and teach them. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to Jessica Ellison.
one of the most important things in teachers is their relationships with students. And any teacher will tell you that relationships come first. And our students have told us this. Our students of color have told us we want to see more people who look like us in staffing positions. And my experience as a white person is not their experience. And so I need to be ready to listen to what our students of color are telling us. And so I believe that representation in our teaching staff is good for not only our students of color, but for our white kids as well. And so I think we need to do what we're already doing. And we talked about this at the board meeting on Monday night, continue to aggressively recruit teachers of color. We need to make sure that we're listening to their needs and that they feel safe and welcome, not just our kids, but that our staff feels safe and welcome, so that our students can connect with someone who has a cultural similarity, a language similarity, because that is what they are telling us they want. And when kids have good relationships with teachers with whom they feel safe and connected, they will be more successful. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to Bill Mahre.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Rebekah was saying. And for somebody like myself who has led large organizations and established minority internship programs and things of that nature to recruit more minorities, I can appreciate what we're trying to accomplish. I think the bigger challenge that this district has is to try to better understand why the high turnover rate. Monday at the school board meeting, they were talking about 170 new people coming on board. And I'm looking at that going, that would be completely unacceptable in the private sector. So we need to understand why people are leaving and not staying with the White Bear Lake School District. And by doing that, you can make this a better cultural fit for all teachers, regardless of race. But it has to be looked at with what their experiences are, where they've taught, what their skill sets are. And once we do that, I go back to the student component of it. We're trying to get them prepared for the real world. They're not going to be able to choose who their boss is or who their supervisor is. And so they need to be confident and flexible to make sure that they understand that there are going to be differences in the community and the people that they work with.
Thank you. We'll now move on to a question on curriculum, and it goes to Bill Mahre first. How would you describe the school board's role in determining curriculum for our students?
I think that we have to rely on some expertise amongst the teachers in terms of, how the courses are taught. I think the one thing that's disappointing that I've seen with the school board and their leadership is the fact that I've been to the last 3 or 4 school board meetings, and unfortunately, we're seeing declines in reading proficiency, math proficiency to the tune of 40% of the kids are not reading at the appropriate level. There has been no dialogue at all from the current school board in terms of how do we fix that? What are the steps that we're going to take to improve performance amongst the children so that they're capable of being successful as they go out the door? That is probably the biggest disappointment, is the lack of leadership right now with the existing school board.
Thank you. The question now goes to Lisa Beecroft.
I mean, the school board's role is to set the strategic plan, to set policies and budget, of course, provide the facilities, the supplies, the equipment that our schools need. When it comes to curriculum, somebody who has also had the opportunity to be a teacher, I mean, at some point, I think bringing the teachers together to help guide where that curriculum is going. So whether it is for your math teachers and determining what are the existing math standards for the state of Minnesota, and then how is that going to translate into what is taught in the classrooms, whether it's for your reading and the best practices that are being employed at this time. It just, to give a nod to the standardized tests, they are one metric that you can look at, but they're not an indicator of future success for every one of our students. I get it. We want all of our students to read and to be able to do math, and it is something that should be addressed in the classroom. But simply looking at standardized tests isn't really going to say they're going to succeed or not succeed as an adult someday. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to Rebekah Bradfield.
As a school board member, I would be helping to facilitate, like was previously said, letting the teachers kind of help us pick what's the best curriculum, getting feedback to know this has worked well or it's not working. Obviously, you look towards experts like the Department of Education to give you recommendations on books that might be appropriate for any given subject. But ultimately, we need to get the feedback from our classes and our schools to know if it's working for our students. So that would be my role. I would be more as like a facilitator support role. And then if they needed, you know, the financial piece or that a contract or something, obviously we would then facilitate that as well. But I would leave a lot of the decision and discussion to the teachers in the classroom.
Thank you. The question now goes to Deborah Beloyed.
Thank you. So our teachers teach to the standards that are set by the Minnesota Department of Education. So the school board's role in that is to make sure that we're teaching to those standards. We don't make curriculum choices for our teachers. Those choices are done at the site level. Those are done through lesson plans that the teachers do at each of those classes, each of those buildings through their site leadership. They are the experts in the field in the curriculum. They're the ones that have gone and gotten the education to understand what those standards mean and how they apply to the lessons that they teach. So the role of the school board, we approve certain changes in class title. If there's a large change in something, we might be asked to vote on, but overall curriculum, that's down to the teachers at the site levels.
Thank you. The question goes to Christina Streiff, OG.
Can you repeat the question one more time, Liz?
How would you describe the school board's role in determining curriculum for our students?
So as been said, is that the curriculum is approved by the board to align with Minnesota state standards, and then each district and site would figure out how they will roll that out and how they will assess the curriculum. I've seen this district, like no other, do professional development that really educates the administrators so that they can educate the staff, so that they can educate paras and anyone that works with kids, so that we're all working in alignment with best practice around educating our kids in reading and math. When we talk about test scores being down, I'm really interested in if that's referring to the Minnesota. I mean, in the last year, we've been in and out, in and out, in and out. Prior to that, White Bear Lake, we're doing, we have exceptional teachers here. We have exceptional staff. We align curriculum. We progress monitor students to that curriculum. And we are very focused on ensuring that our students meet those individual standards.
Thank you. The question goes to Jessica Ellison.
Thank you. Yeah, and as has been said, the school board really has a governance role, and so we don't determine curriculum. That really is a building decision. We will approve structural change. So for example, when the middle schools changed the structure of their schedule a couple of years ago, that's something that we approved. Or when we have new courses or course change names, when they change names, those are the things we approve. But we don't sit around and look at textbooks. We don't look at teachers' lessons plans, because they are the ones who know what their students need. They know the standards, and they work with the people within their buildings to find the resources that are best for them. The Department of Education does set the standards. They can't make any curriculum recommendations. And so a lot of it is teachers' experience and the experience of our Department of Teaching and Learning. There are so many different elements to how we educate and assess our students' performance that we get updates on regularly. But we, as a governing body, we do not have influence on what are the books that are being read in students' classrooms, because that is up to the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to Kathleen Daniels.
Thank you. As my colleagues have mentioned, we follow the Minnesota state standards, grade level standards, and there's grade level standards from kindergarten to 12th grade. We have departments in each, in elementary, middle, and high school that make recommendations to curriculum. The school board doesn't create the curriculum. It only approves those recommendations. And there is actually a community curriculum committee that community members, and we have to have that committee, and community members can be involved in that. And it would be wonderful if we had more involvement. I know over the years, we've really had to search to find community members that would like to be involved. But as some of my colleagues have mentioned, there are many ways to measure our growth and many ways to measure how the kids are doing. And the best way in my mind to measure that is how much growth they make in a year or 2 years, not how many can do this and how many can do that, but how each individual child is making progress in their areas of math, reading, and other curriculum that we have in our schools. So as a school board member, it would just be approving curriculum.
Thank you. The question goes to John Ficcadenti.
You know, I just heard the common theme with most of the responses were, we follow, we follow, we follow. Okay. We are in a crisis mode. We need to lead. We don't follow anymore. Okay. We have to step outside of the box, and maybe we should be involved in the curriculum, because what we're currently doing, whoever we're leaving it up to, it's not working. So we don't follow anymore. We step up, and we don't go to outside firms. We don't go to Equity Alliance of Minnesota. We don't give big dollars for people to come in here and tell us how to run things. Okay. When I'm on the school board, we will not follow, we will lead. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to Luke Michaud.
Yeah, I had a great deal of concern with some of the answers as I was hearing them as well, that this all falls on the teachers, and let's point at someone besides the school board. The teachers aren't elected. The school board are the elected officials that the taxpayers of this community elect to represent them and to represent the interests of their children, and to not be ones to be reviewing this information, I think is absurd. I think the school board members need to take a more active role. Otherwise, you know, we're going to continue on in this same situation. I look at the school board meeting from just last month, where it's clear the respect for the parents has gone out the window, and any form of a representative republic is down the drain. The school board needs to become more hands-on, not less hands-on.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. It goes to Luke Michaud first. What effect do you believe remote learning during the 2021 school year had on student progress? Have some
Could you do
students
that one, ma'am? Could you start that over? I got overridden with the muting.
Okay. What effect do you believe remote learning during the 2021 school year had on student progress? Have some students been more significantly affected? And if so, how and what can be done to overcome learning deficits? What is the role of remote learning going forward?
Well, I think the last school year did affect the rate of learning, and I do associate some of the lower test scores with the distance learning and a new way that these kids and families had to learn, and the teachers and staff. I think probably the biggest effect of distance learning was an awakening by the parents when they were seeing and hearing and becoming more in touch with what was being taught and some of the lessons that were being learned. And all of a sudden, they weren't so sure that they liked these lessons and decided to get more involved. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now goes to Jessica Ellison.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's undoubtable that the remote learning, distance learning had an impact on our kids, both physical, emotional, mental, and their learning. It kept them safe, which is why we did it. And I believe that what we saw was, you know, a dip in test scores, certainly, but that's not the only metric. I think what we also saw is a lot of resilience on the part of our students, and a lot of adaptation. And we know that if students were preparing them for career, college, civic life, we're preparing them to be adapting. We're preparing them to, you know, learn how to be empathetic. And so I believe that we've learned so much in the last year because of remote learning. We are able to kind of take a look at our steps forward and say, okay, where are our students? What needs do they have? And how can we readjust and adapt as adults to make sure that they're getting what they need? I think there will be remote learning going forward in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if it's going to be because of COVID, but I think our teachers and staff did a remarkable job of continuing to teach our kids, and they did learn.
Thank you. The question now goes to John Ficcadenti.
Well, I mean, I think it's well documented that remote learning was very difficult for all students. I have 2 college-age children that struggled. What do you do to get kids back? You kind of like a football coach when the season starts, to catch everybody up, to get them back physically fit and whatnot, they do 2-a-days. That's the commitment that they make to get themselves back in shape. And when it comes to school, we have to do the same thing. We might have to get rid of some electives. We might have to just stick to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and that's it. Maybe no field trips. I mean, I'm sorry, kids, you had kind of a light load for the last year and a half. It's time for us to get serious, get academics back on track. And we have a lot to make up. And so we're going to have to focus. We are going to have to, like I said, get rid of some of the electives and maybe do not 2-a-days, but if you have 3 classes twice a day, 3 very basic classes, because we need to get back to the basics, because there's no doubt they are behind.
Thank you. The question now goes to Bill Mahre.
I think one thing we should make sure that we're clear about is I've heard a couple people say that, you know, the distance learning resulted in reduction in test scores and whatever. Test scores have been declining for a number of years. So while they may have dipped, it was predicated based on what's been happening over the last 5 or 6 years. I think it was difficult for families. I think it was difficult for children. And it wasn't anything other than the fact that they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the interaction from a social standpoint, and they didn't have the time effort from sometimes their parents or grandparents to help them. I mean, I sat on ones with our grandchildren, and you'd have 24 kids in a class and 2 of them would dominate the Zoom call. So there was a learning process, I think, for all of the kids in that. And from a future standpoint, I think Zoom and remote learning is going to be a thing of the future that's going to continue. Not even when the pandemic ends. I think people have found it to be efficient in some respects, and they can do it, but they've learned a lot. And I think that learning can take place and improve it as we move forward.
Thank you. The question goes to Rebekah Bradfield.
In regards to remote learning affecting student progress, I saw firsthand some major dips, especially with my daughter. And that was in part because our teachers weren't prepared for it. We were in and out of different forms of learning last school year. And some of those involved kids being home while others were in class, all learning from the same teacher in the class. And that, I think, had a huge effect in how students were able to learn, especially those that weren't in the classroom. But also when everyone was distance learning, some students weren't able to speak up. Like Bill had mentioned, sometimes you have students dominating the class, and it makes it much harder for the teacher to recognize and help the students that maybe are more shy or just aren't as loud. And I especially noticed that with my daughter in math. She just wasn't the teacher couldn't tell that she needed help because he couldn't see the body language. And then also, just as was mentioned, back on track. We need
Thank
to
you.
make sure that we are
Thank you. Your
setting
time's up.
goals to get that year caught up.
Thank you. The question now goes to Christina Streiff, OG.
Sorry. Were our students impacted? Absolutely. The entire globe was impacted by the pandemic, and remote learning was a necessary option at that time. We didn't have a choice. We didn't know enough. And we are, I would say that our kids that were most significantly affected, depended on each individual student. I know a lot of people said that students of low socioeconomic status were impacted. They absolutely were. They have less resources, or their parents were not able to work from home and help them and support them as much as possible as others might have been. But I'm going to take this question back to equity and individual learning styles and meeting the needs of each and every child. Some kids excelled in that environment, which I think is why it should continue. I think there's a place for it. And then some really struggled. I think our teachers did an exceptional job of adapting, and our students did an exceptional job in an incredibly challenging environment.
Thank you. The question goes to Deborah Beloyed.
Yeah, there's no doubt that every single one of our students and teachers were affected by having to go to distance learning. Going in and out from between hybrid and distance, and then finally back in person, we can see the effects. We saw the emotional effects that it had on students. We saw the learning gaps that it created for some students. It showed us where we have gaps in technology for some of our students. We had to send out over, I think it was 250 hotspots for some of our students that didn't have access. So it helped us identify some areas that we could improve on. The other part of it is our teachers did an exceptional job of moving mountains in order to make this happen in such a short period of time. And I don't think people appreciate that quite enough. Is a big thing to change an entire learning process within a couple months and make that equitable to our students, make sure that our students are engaged. And we also learned that some of our students actually thrived in that environment. So that's one of the reasons why we started the Distance Learning Academy, and one of the reasons why that we'll probably always have some form of distance learning available.
Thank you. The question goes to Lisa Beecroft.
No one is going to argue that 2020 and 2021 were unusual years that had an effect on our students. It's not 100% fair to say that everybody lost ground on it. My kids, they actually did better. They took to the remote learning really, really well. I realize that's not the case for every student, but what we did learn from this is that there are different learning styles, and we tried things that we probably never would have tried. We've always done it this way. Why would we do it differently? It did give us an opportunity to try new techniques for teaching our students. The other part of this was the teachers were phenomenal. They reached out to my kids. I knew my teachers better last year than I have some years where I actually saw them face to face, because they were in touch with us regularly when my kids were needing help in an area. So I hope that through this, it was a stressful year because of remote learning, but it was also stressful because we're in a pandemic. We had people that were getting sick. We had people we knew that passed. My hope is that as we go forward, we have learned from that. We take what worked, we change what didn't work, and we continue to evolve in our school system.
Thank you. The question goes to Kathleen Daniels.
Yes, I think a learning loss, obviously occurred not just in White Bear Lake, but across the state and across the nation, across the world. And it was an incredibly challenging time for families, for teachers, grandparents, and the community. We have an incredible technology department that went above and beyond, running Chromebooks and hotspots and wiring and doing everything they possibly could do to help families get connected. And the teachers, again, did everything humanly possible to continue to teach those students. And as some of you mentioned, some students really thrived with the online learning. And I want to give a shout out to the teachers too that had to balance both hybrid, both in person and online simultaneously, which was really a feat. And I also want to say that special education, many of our programs, our high-level programs, continued in the building during COVID. Teachers, therapists showed up, taught kids, paraprofessionals showed up with the kids. So I just have to give a shout out to them.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to Kathleen Daniels first. On November 5th in 2019, the White Bear Lake School District voters approved a $326 million building bond request to address building needs across the district. This facilities plan will be phased in through 2025. Do you have concerns about this major initiative? What experience have you had that will help you as a school board member to oversee the implementation of this plan?
First of all, I just would like to thank the community for that great gift, because many of the improvements that are now in the process of being completed have been completed. I was at the school board work study on Thursday night, and we had several completed on-time projects already. And we are only 2 years into this since the referendum was passed. So do I have concerns? I do, but I have experience in budgeting and in accountability. And I know as a school board member, it is our job to keep these projects on track and to be accountable for this, all the money that is going into this. And I'm super excited for the new high school. It's supposed to open in 2024, long awaited. My own son was born the year that the district split. And so we've been working on that for a long time. So I have concerns, but we're ready for it.
Thank you. The question now goes to Bill Mahre.
Yeah, I think the fiscal responsibility of the school board is critical in this area. Detailing success, communicating with the public, being transparent, making sure that people understand where this $350 million is going. I disagree with Kathleen a little bit. I was at the same meeting and I didn't see any references to on time or on budget. All I saw was that there were some numbers that were spent in some cases, and in other cases, there was no numbers. So there needs to be a real clarity around each project. What's the cost? Is it on time? And once it's done, once it's completed, like the transportation building, showing a picture of an orange bus on the presentation is not sufficient enough. We should be demonstrating to the public what the benefits of this particular transportation building is and how it's going to help the improvement in safety or efficiency or whatever it might be. When we're not doing that at this point, all we're doing is saying, we've got these monies, we're spending them, and here's when they should be operational. And that's not enough for a school board to communicate to the public.
Thank you. Question goes to Jessica Ellison.
So I have been on the board since the bond referendum was passed. And again, I want to agree with Kathleen that I want to thank the community. We desperately needed these facilities updates. Anybody who has ever been in Lincoln knows that we needed a gym. We needed a unified high school. We needed freezers in our elementary schools. And the district has a long history of getting awards for our financial responsibility. And this is no different here. And all of the information about every single one of the projects is on the district's website. You can find all of the information about the timelines, about the building plans, about how much each project is costing, when they're supposed to be done, the different levels of the plans. And so the district is being incredibly transparent and being good stewards of the community's money. And you can go back through all of the documents that go back all the way to 2018 to show how we are spending this money and how we are doing it on time and how we are doing it within our budget. So I believe that the district is on the right track. I look forward to having a unified high school. I think that is going to be incredibly valuable for our community, and it was so needed. So thank you.
Thank you. The question now goes to Christina Streiff-Oji.
Thank you. Experiences, I would say, having been in, I would also like to thank the community of White Bear Lake. Having been in a building that was 50 years old, there were lots of needs. I came into the building wearing a hard hat. It was under construction at that time. There were some renovations being done at that time, and there have been more renovations due to this bond referendum. They are renovations that are making our schools spaces that are more inviting and collaborative, but there were lots of needs, including that freezer, including collaborative learning spaces, and bringing our bathrooms and things like that up to par with current day amenities, I should say. I've had experience with buildings under construction. I've had experience overseeing large budgets, and I've had experience overseeing multiple projects, both in education and out. So that's my answer.
Thank you. The question goes to Luke Michaud.
Yeah, thank you. I would use my past business experiences, my experiences with budgeting, my experience from the White Bear Lake Conservation District of doing projects and making sure it was open to everyone and the budgeting involved with it, and just making sure it was a very open and transparent process. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now goes to John Ficcadenti. Sorry.
That's okay. I too voted for the referendum. I think it's important that our schools are a crown jewel of the community. It represents our community well, and it assists our kids in being the best version of themselves. We definitely owe it to the citizens of White Bear to be fiscally responsible. And that is one of the biggest jobs of a school board. I have had a small business for over 25 years. And to be honest with you, COVID was horrible for me. But I made some moves and business moves and things that I had to do. And I came out on the other side of it. I understand it's pretty basic. You have a dollar amount that you're given, you need to stick to it. And that's what we will do with the school board. Make sure that we hold the vendors and the contractors, make sure they're accountable for the dollars and whatnot that they're charging the school district. So we do have to be fiscally responsible.
Thank you. The question now goes to Lisa Beecroft. As somebody who graduated from White Bear, when I went to school, we were right after the school split occurred, and we wanted to get back to eventually having a unified school. And I'm really excited that at least my son will get the opportunity to be a part of that new school. I attended the meetings and the planning early on with this facilities project, and I was amazed at how much the schools had made do with facilities that were starting to crumble, with buildings that were at or exceeding capacity. And definitely this project seemed like it was the right thing at the right time. I do have concerns. I mean, anytime you are working on a project of this size, you do need to make sure you're setting milestones and setting a budget and then sticking to those so that the project is filled successfully. But as somebody who's worked at universities and other school districts when we had facilities projects like this, or even as somebody who runs large events that has large budgets, that you have to make sure that you are not just planning, but then also adapting when things happen. I have the experience to see a project like this through, so it's exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Question goes to Deb Beloyed.
Yeah, huge thank you to the community for passing the bond referendum. It was much needed, and it was one of the main reasons why I ran for school board 4 years ago. I live here in Hugo, and I saw what kind of facilities we needed. Our classrooms were filling up. We didn't have the space, and we knew that we needed to address the facilities issues on the south side of town in White Bear as well. Do I have concerns? I think you always need to be concerned when the community gives you $326 million to build and to upgrade your facilities. I'm on the finance committee of the school boards. We get regular updates from our building people. We actually are very transparent. I think it's one of the most transparent processes that we have done to date. All of the information is on the website. If you were at the meetings throughout the last 2 years, we have gotten updates on project costs. We have gotten updates on whether or not we were coming in at budget. We were getting updates on whether or not things were going to be delayed, whether they were going to be on time. All of that information is on the website. Or you can go back through meetings and watch those recordings, but it is all there. And I believe that we'll just keep
Thank
going.
you. Thank you. The question goes to Rebekah Bradfield.
Thank you. I too voted in favor of that bond. For me, it was a lot about seeing my kids at Lake Ayres at the time having such a small media center and not enough classrooms, and we were seeing enrollment growth. My concern that kind of pairs with that is the decrease in enrollment we've seen significantly, in part due to the pandemic, but also due to some very unhappy parents regarding the curriculum changes they saw once their kids were home. So that is my concern, is did we potentially overbuild for what we have coming forward, especially if we continue a distance learning academy? I grew up in a small town, so the thought of a huge high school seems like you kind of lose people in it. If we want people to feel that they're a part of something and are engaged and that they're important, I do worry a little bit that such a large class or a large school might lose some of that. But as far as personal experience, I've done a number of projects on my own homes and things, obviously smaller scale. But just in the past year, I left a position. I was doing $1 billion budget annually. So I have a very good grasp of how large budgets work
Thank
and
you.
how you work.
Your
within
time
a
is
finance.
up. Thank you. And the next question goes to you first, Rebekah. How can the school board ensure that the community has a voice in discussions regarding the direction of the district?
I believe the best way for the community to have a voice is to engage with the events that are normally offered with the school. School board meetings obviously are still occurring, but anytime we have an opportunity to go to a school event, a football game, a PTO carnival, anything of that nature, it's great for community to be able to get in the buildings, get in the spaces, interact and speak with staff, speak with our school board members. And that, I think, is one way that we can make sure their voices are being heard. But we also need to ensure that we as school board members and staff and our administration do the same. We get in the space of the community, meet them at Cup and Cone for some ice cream, make sure we're reaching out to. So the communication needs to go both ways.
Thank you. The question goes to Deb Beloyed.
Yeah, so the voice of the community and our parents is an integral part of what we need to do. And since I've been on the board, all of the major decisions that we've made over the last 4 years have been done in partnership with the community, with parents. Our strategic plan was developed by 200 community members. That included families, teachers, business owners. There's different levels of engagement. We receive, hundreds of emails that we read. We receive phone calls. There's public forum. There are many different ways. There's committees for people to join. There's a lot of different ways that we get information from the community. Those are some of the direct ways. We attend community events. We attend PTA meetings. We go to all of those different things to gather the information and hear what our parents and what our community thinks.
Thank you. The question goes to Lisa Beecroft.
There are different ways that the school board can engage with the community and make sure that they have a voice. Some of them have been touched on already, certainly attending the events like Market Fest and others that are out in the community, and they bring our families and our business owners and our nonprofits together. A couple that I can think of that are unique. The Career Pathways program has done a phenomenal job of connecting students who are looking forward to future work or future success that they want to have. And they work and partner with local businesses and organizations to give students that experience with what they could possibly be doing once they are done with their education in White Bear. So continuing to find creative ways to bring different people, the businesses, the organizations in our community into the schools, and to get the students out into the community so that they can really learn more about how to be an engaged citizen. I think those are valuable ways to make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you. The question now goes to John Ficcadenti.
Well, the easiest is keeping public forum open and not closing it down like the school board did the last 2 school board sessions. If I were on school board, one thing I would guarantee, whether you agree with me or not, you will be heard. How can you possibly govern a district if you're not listening to the district, or you're only listening to a certain segment of that district? It's important that everybody's voice is heard, whether we agree with it or not, because we need critical thinking. On the school board, we need critical thinking. We need different, we don't want like-minded individuals. We want different views of opinion. That's healthy. That brings a good dialogue. And when the school sends out an email, that doesn't necessarily mean people read it. So when it comes to emails, the school can track who actually opened them up, who didn't open them up, and how many bounced because it was a bad email address. So what I would do is I would get the data from that and find a certain percentage of how many people are actually listening to what we're promoting. What percentage
Thank
did
you.
that email reach?
Your time is up.
We'll find out then that way.
Thank you. Question now goes to Bill Mahre.
I think it's critically important that the school board be open and available for communication. How you do that, I mean, yeah, there's some avenues like marketplace or a PTA meeting, but the concern that I have is that it's a very small minority of the population of this school district that is loud, that's being heard, and that we're reacting to those. And that's a struggle that I have, is how do we engage a much higher percentage of the families and the parents? You know, people have talked about we need to meet students at a specific point. We need to engage the parents, the families, the guardians also. And I don't think we're doing that. Surveys, for example, are a critical part of business responses, whether it's surveys to their customers, surveys to their employees, peer surveys in terms of, you know, how is my principal doing? And, you know, how is that person providing leadership? So I think we have to think out of the box, and we need new thinking in this arena to make sure that we're capturing the input from a large community, and it's a very diverse community.
Thank you. The question now goes to Kathleen Daniels.
Yeah, first I would like to say, I would like to encourage that we have some civil and respectful dialogue when we do disagree, because just being participating in some of the community gatherings and school board meetings, I think some of our civility have kind of disappeared. So I would encourage that first. And then also, I participated in a strategic plan where we did have 200 different people participate. And it was a great coming together of all kinds of people from all over the community. There's different ways to communicate. There's informational, which is emails, newsletters, websites, things like that, and participatory, which are committees and things like that. And I've been involved in like the American Indian Parent Advisory Board. I've been involved in the Special Education Advisory Board, the curriculum community, lots of opportunity. And we also have tried to get parents who don't usually come into the schools in our intentional social interaction gatherings that we've done in various buildings. So I think the district has tried, and we encourage participation of any resident. And people have different experiences with schools, and some are hesitant to come in, but we're encouraging everyone to communicate.
Thank you. Thank you. The question goes to Luke Michaud.
I think we almost need to contact the Hockey Association and see how they get parents involved as well as they do. it's having worked in community on a community board, until someone is upset or not feeling real good about something, it's tough to get people in the room. I'm encouraged by the school board meetings of late that are packing the room. I think maybe some of the voices and the noise gets a little louder, but that's part of the representative republic that we're in. Some of the issues that I've heard while I've been outdoor knocking has been there's a great deal of quantity of information coming from the school, but not a great deal of quality as far as the information. And I don't know whether that's by tweet or email or what, but I do think we could use a more effective social media campaign. Really try to hone down on getting quality information out to the parents. I think the parents need to get more involved like everyone else does. I would love to see on the school board, look out in the audience, and hopefully I will, and see a packed room every night. I think it would be great. Open comment time should not be restricted. You should have 30 minutes. Obviously, that's
Thank
fine.
you.
But all right, bye.
Thank you. Your time is up. Question now goes to Jessica Ellison.
Yeah, there's so many different ways that we can connect with the community, and a lot of it has to do with the scale of decisions being made. As has previously been mentioned, we involved 200 members of the community in our strategic plan. We had so many members of the community involved in the facilities planning process after the bond referendum was passed and before. We had a community listening session last spring about the school start times. We had an email that went out about learning options last year when we were in the middle of making decisions. And there are a number of things that come out from our district media office. Certainly there are emails, but we have the week in 6.4 seconds. We have the newsletter that comes out. We do have a social media presence on Facebook. There's a lot of information coming out to the community. We also have cultural liaisons that connect with our families that perhaps English isn't their first language. And so they're making sure that those families are a part of it. And I would also say that we get hundreds and hundreds of emails. We read all of them. And public comment is not required by law. In the state of Minnesota, it is the same as an email, a same weight as an email. So we encourage people to come to public comment. We also encourage people to come to the school board meetings during work study where we don't have public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now goes to Christina Streiff.
Yes, I think that there are a lot of formal and informal ways to get input. I think input from the community is critical, essential, and necessary. I also participated on the strategic plan, the planning team, district-wide and at my site. We spent a lot of time with families. We spent a lot of time with students, former students, getting input, community leaders from all around the area. It was an extremely validating and also learning experience for me. I learned a lot because I listened a lot, but I find for me a lot of formal ways. I sent out Google, surveys and things like that to get feedback from parents. To me, the most beneficial was the personal, talking to parents and families. We did an ISI, an intentional social interaction at Willow. We had by far the best parent participation ever. Parents want to talk. If we give them an environment where they're comfortable coming to, they will come and they will talk and they will share if they trust us. And it comes with those interpersonal relationships and doing home visits and really just getting to know your community and your families.
Thank you. We'll now move on to closing statements, and we'll begin with Deb Beloyed. But in your closing statement, I hope you will also answer this question. Why do you want to be on the school board, and why are you the best person to be elected?
Thank you. The White Bear Lake District voters have a very important choice to make in this election. The overwhelming majority of our community supports our strategic plan and believes that we're headed in the right direction, especially coming out of a worldwide pandemic. I believe our community wants a district that strives for excellence and seeks to remove barriers for all of our students. They want our schools to be safe, and they want us to equip our teachers and students to have difficult conversations about issues and experiences that may be different from their own. This election is about the kind of schools we want for our children and grandchildren. And the reason why I think that I'm the best choice is I've been on the school board for 4 years. Experience matters. Understanding what the governance part of being on a board matters. Having the experience of governing through a pandemic matters. having a background in finance matters. So I'm asking our voters to get out on November 2nd and vote for me, Deb Beloyed.
Thank you. With her closing statement now is Jessica Ellison.
Thank you. I love being a public servant. I have loved my service the last 4 years on the school board. And similar to my colleague Deb, I think experience is critical. I understand what it means to govern. I understand what the rules and laws are that we have to follow. I understand the roles and responsibilities of a board member. I understand the time commitment and all that it entails. I also understand how important it is to consider that we have 8,400 students in this community that all have individual needs that we as a district need to do our very best to ensure that they're getting what they need. And so I believe that I'm the best person for the job because I do have this experience. I've worked in education for 17 years, so I understand the complexity of education and running a school district. I'm also a very thoughtful and reflective leader. I listen, I do research, I communicate with families, I listen to our students, our staff, and our professionals, knowing that they are the experts on their own experiences. And I make decisions that impact the community overall. And governing through a pandemic, through a crisis, has made me a really good candidate to continue to push this district forward. So I ask for your vote, Jessica Ellison, on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with her closing statement, Kathleen Daniels.
Yes, I've been a member of the community for 40 plus years. I'm invested in the community. I know the community and I love the community. I've been a public educator for 35 years, 27 of those in White Bear Lake, 22 in the classroom, 13 years and as an administrator. I know what good teaching looks like. I know what good delivery looks like. I know how to understand students. I have a long history. My life's work really is about advocating for children and families and staff. I know what success looks like and understanding good delivery. I have experience in school finance and budgeting. Special ed had a very large budget. I know what accountability looks like. I've managed a lot of people, teachers, paraprofessionals, and other entities. I know what a school member is and what a school member is not to do. And I support the district's strategic plan, and I strive to be an exceptional leader in an exceptional time. Please vote for Kathleen Daniels, November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with his closing statement is Luke Michaud.
Well, good evening, and thank you again to the league for hosting this event. I appreciate it and all the information that you provide the voters. If I were to look for a silver cloud in the COVID lining in the COVID cloud, it would have to be that teachers have decided they don't want what this current school board is. They don't want what this current school board has to offer from experience. And they don't want people a little too close to the needs or to the actual facility. They want a little bit of distance. They want some business experience, and they want people who've got a more diverse experience background than only education. I'll be here to serve the three legs of the stool: the children, the staff and teachers, and the parents, the taxpayers. I'd appreciate your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with her closing statement is Christina Streiff. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. Yes, I'm running for school board because I want to be here to support the students. I care about kids a lot. I've worked both in education and in the private sector. I've spent the last 26 years in education and in all different roles and all different levels. I found my calling when I came to education. I keep trying to walk away from education and try something different, and I keep getting pulled back because I care. I care about this community. I think it's an amazing district. I think this is a time when our teachers, our children, our teachers, and our school leaders need our support more than ever, probably in my lifetime. And I feel like this is a time when we should be stepping up and supporting one another. I have a collaborative leadership style. I don't believe in making any big decisions without input. And I really believe in this community and in the children, in creating the best possible experience for our students and preparing them for their futures. Please vote for me on November 2nd, Chris Streiff OG.
Thank you. Now with his closing statement is Bill Mahre.
Yeah, I think one of the most critical things when you're looking at a board is diversity. And it's interesting that the people on this panel here tonight have emphasized that. But then they're also in the same breath are saying, well, we need only educational experience and we want 5 current or former teachers on the school board. That's not diversity. You need to look for different experiences, different skill sets, different abilities. I'm a person that has run a number of different boards, has been a member of different boards, both public, private, as well as nonprofit. I've got a significant leadership style in terms of collaboration, making sure that you gather input, but also holding accountability. One of the things that I look at with our school district is each program, we got to look at it. How is it paying dividends for our students and our staff? And I'm not seeing that on a regular basis. And that's unfortunate because it's millions of dollars at stake and it's also our children's future. So I'm looking forward to being a member of the White Bear Lake School Board going forward, beginning in November of 2021.
Thank you. The question, now with his closing statement is John Ficcadenti.
One of the reasons I think I should be on the school board is because I'm not an incumbent. There's an expression I use all the time, a new broom sweeps cleaner, and that's what I would like to do. One of the qualities, truthfully, anybody who honestly cares and doesn't have any outside interests, but truly cares about the kids, family, and community, you are a candidate that I want to represent White Bear Lake Schools, and that's what I represent. Kids, family, and community. You heard tonight from the incumbents, we follow, we follow, we follow. We heard them say that we are at a time we need to lead, we need to lead, we need to lead. MCA scores, we all know, spiraling downward for 5 years pre-COVID, okay? All on this current school board's watch. Total disconnect with the community. Parents are frustrated. People come to me and say, if that school board remains currently as it is, I will leave the school district. Those are the people I want to reach, okay? If they were in the private sector, they'd be fired. But we have the opportunity to do it as voters on November 2nd. Vote for John Ficcadenti for White Bear Lake School Board, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you. Now with her closing statement is Rebekah Bradfield.
Thank you again for hosting this forum this evening. I chose to start pursuing a candidacy for school board because of my own children and because of other children that I knew that have been suffering at the decisions this past 2 to 4 years. I believe that the priorities of the school district need to remain fiscal responsibility, academic excellence, and community engagement. As stewards of tax dollars, it is essential that they are used to enhance student learning using the most economical means possible. And we need to partner with community members and organizations to support our students and staff. Parents and taxpayers should feel represented by their school board members. I believe that I am the best candidate for this position, in part because of my diverse experience. I have experience as a member of the military. I have experience working for private sector companies. I have experience working with large budgets with government funds, and currently work in a nonprofit. I believe that I am the best candidate, so vote for Rebekah Bradfield on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with her closing statement is Lisa Beecroft.
I'm running for school board because I want to serve my community. And I want to ensure that all of our students in the White Bear Lake Area School District are going to receive a quality education. I'm a resident, a parent, a small business owner, a community leader, and I've called White Bear area my home most of my life. I bring a wide variety of experiences from my past work experience. Worked in schools, I worked in large businesses, I worked in small businesses. I currently own a small business. And all of those experiences have made me an effective leader, and I really want to be able to use those skills to help our school district move forward. I'm a good listener, an effective communicator, and I collaborate well with others. And this school board needs to be a team. I believe in the education of our students, the life skills that they're going to gain, and the connections that they will get during their time with White Bear Schools. We want to prepare them for what comes next. So thank you to the Women League of Voters for allowing us this opportunity to share our passions for our community and our priorities for the school district. And please vote for Lisa Beecroft on November 2nd.
Thank you. You have now heard from 9 of the candidates for White Bear Lake School Board. In the election, you will be voting for 4 open positions. The league thanks the candidates for their participation, our league volunteers, and you, the audience, for your attendance and interest. Let your voice be heard by voting by November 2nd. Thank you.